Ron Jess for Jessfor30, and I'm really happy again, as usual, another great guest. We don't have anything but great guests. Everyone we've had, we've loved them, and we've had fun with them, and we get good people. And today's no different. We have Ed Kelly, a legend in Detroit radio, WJR these days with Mitch Album and Kenny Brown. And
oh, yes, KB, and we've got...
Ed, welcome to the show.
Yeah, so much. You say you've had all these great shows and great guests. Why would you want to break your streak now?
Well, we're not going to. Ed, you were born in Ontario.
I was.
And you grew up pretty much just a tough spot, tough projects. You grew up in a rough environment.
Yeah,
rough.
Yeah, Windsor, Ontario, or as Journey called it, South Detroit.
Yeah.
They call themselves the Motor City, too, even though they're on the Canadian side. And it is auto workers, including myself. I was a former auto worker for a time.
I did it.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, so we got that going. I knew you had those blue-collar eyes.
Oh,
That's why they're blue. Match the
that's
collar.
what Sean Belesian said. Livonia, Redford. We're just hillbilly blue collar
I know Sean.
fighters.
He follows us. Yes, or used to anyway.
So mom and dad, Ed.
Yes, mom from Glasgow, Scotland, and she sounds like Mrs. Doubtfire. Okay, and she was a tough bird. I want to tell you that. So I'm first generation removed. I actually have more blood over there in Glasgow than I do in Detroit or Windsor or Canada, for that matter. And it was so funny because they came over. My father was a stonemason by trade, but he was also an architect and a draftsman and all these other things that he did. Very smart man. But he was post-World War II, so he was kind of PTSD. But Mom was a treat because they headed for Toronto, which is a metropolis in Ontario. They landed in Halifax, Nova Scotia meaning New Scotland. Well, when you're living in the old Scotland, why not go to the New Scotland? So they passed Toronto on the 401 and went to a little French enclave right across from River Rouge, maybe a little further downriver, called La Salle, Ontario. It's a small town. And my father got a job laying bricks, building the Ford power plant on Riverside Drive, which you can see from Jefferson. And that's how we ended up in Windsor, Ontario.
Yeah, that's part of my territory, and we stay in Mississauga, though. We go over the other bridge, the Blue Water, not the Ambassador.
Yeah. Sure.
So you went to school where, Ed?
I went to school at General Brock, which is, again, 2 blocks off of the water on the west side of Windsor. And I look out over, what did we look over? River Rouge, basically.
I assume there were many fights in the project, and you grew up fighting.
Oh, man, you don't. What used to be a field that I played in, with flowers and trees and, birds chirping. All of a sudden, these big land movers went in and this claw came out. And they built these housing projects. And in came a new crowd altogether that saw me as a punching bag.
You told me earlier, we've had some hour-long talks,
At least.
3 or 4 times, I think. And you told me there was a fascination for you growing up across that Detroit River, looking at Detroit and Cobo Hall, I think, in particular.
Oh, yeah. As a kid, like even at, 5 or 6 or whatever, I would sit on the banks, sit on the docks and look across and just watch all of what went on over there. Like, what is this place? Because I had never been. Prerequisite for getting there was having a car, which we did not. My dad did, but he was only in the picture for a short time. In and out kind of thing. It was a broken marriage kind of thing. They ended up divorcing eventually. But I just thought, wow, that's just so cool over there. And I kept expecting something to go by Cobo, that circular ramp going like a Jetsons air car.
Right. All those lights were going round and round. And we did that. When you get dizzy by the time you got to the roof. Right. We all went to the roof.
And I remember when we eventually did get over there, they had so much neon. It was everywhere, because it would have been the 60s at that point. And then the riots happened, and I was scared to death because I could hear the sirens and I could hear the gunfire. And living on the West End, that's where it was, Southwest Detroit. So I was directly across from it. And I'm watching smoke billowing up from the skies. Didn't deter my determination to come over. You know, and then '68 the Tigers won. That was a big deal. And I just did attended Catch at MGM. You know, Sparky's charity. So I actually got to meet and take a picture with Milt Wilcox, and you know, Gibby was there, and all of these legends. So I had a baseball that I won as a little brother, member of the Big Brothers organization.
Sure.
And it had most of their names on it, you know. And then my brother took it out of the the gold stand with this plastic sphere that was meant to protect it and maintain its value, and he started throwing it around with his friends. You know?
Well, you know how that
Thanks,
goes.
bro. Yeah.
You don't forget those things,
No.
do you?
Big brother.
Well, you know, the guy who runs Catch is a Dearborn Divine Child guy. And we've had Jeff Chadwick here. We had Tim Finnerty, the dad of Cullen, who won 3 national championships at Grand Valley as a quarterback. And unfortunately, he passed away up in Gladwin. You know the story?
I don't.
A little bit?
No.
Yeah, that was pretty tough. A Brighton kid, and
Sure.
His dad coached my son and everybody's son in Brighton. His dad's a legend in Brighton, Tim Finnerty, and he was here with Jeff Chadwick, a Lion. And there was some talk about the CTC, the thing with the brain damage, and you know, with Cullen, he was overprescribed, and his dad would probably. He would not have a problem. We're close friends. He would not have a problem with me mentioning it. They sent his brain out to Boston, and what happened was the pharmacist who was prescribing all this medication to him, he lost his license.
Well,
rightfully so.
Yes, that's a pretty responsible job. That's why they go through so much schooling. You know, because if you put the wrong dose in the wrong capsule, it can be fatal. I mean, you've got to take that job seriously.
Do you get Netflix where you're at? Do you watch it?
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen Painkiller yet?
No, I've not seen that. It is on the list, though.
Watch Painkiller.
Is it worth it?
It is. It tells you where this prescription. Matthew Broderick is the star.
Yeah.
And he's the head of a big Purdue pharmaceutical.
Oh, my.
And what happens, Ed, is they have this movie, and it talks about all these people all over the country they're killing people, and they open their stomachs up, and guess what they find?
Yeah.
6 or 8 of that Oxycontin. They find the pills right inside of them. They don't dissolve all of them, and boy, that it's quite a movie. It really is.
And the family should be held accountable. Mm-hmm. You know, because and what I had heard is there had been, you know, some backdoor slipping of an envelope that got them off the hook, but that was during a previous administration. I'm not going to go into politics. I'm just saying that pharmaceutical industries in general need to be regulated and more closely watched, because that was hillbilly heroin. That took out more kids and more people because they would get on it. And they were encouraged by these medical reps to overprescribe, you know. Oh, you've got a sore ankle. Here's 100 of these Oxycontin. Well, they would get on it, and they would just love the stuff. And then when they couldn't get it filled, they would turn to heroin. They would turn to crack. They would turn to any other opioid to get that dopamine lollipop upstairs.
Well, 2 of the best salespeople in the movie are these beautiful young girls.
Of course, it's true.
Go with the doctors.
Pharma reps.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, I don't know how many there had to be a lot of those out there.
Oh, I have dealt closely with many of them because I read pharmaceutical scripts.
Do you?
Believe it or not, yeah, they're called industrials.
So you do the Dream Cruise? Do you go down and visit there? You go to M1 and
love the Dream Cruise.
My son Jeremy's father-in-law, his name is Greg Ornazian, and he's got what they call Greg's Museum in Troy, and we've been through there.
You told me about this.
It's cool.
In fact, you said there might be a possibility of a tour.
I'd be happy to tell you if I get permission or set it up, Ed. I could set it up, but it's one of those things. You know, I love Greg. He's a cool guy. He was a linebacker at Maryland. He's a tough guy.
Yeah.
When my son married his daughter Maggie, he invites him over to the house in Royal Oak, and Jeremy's sitting, you know, in a chair, and Greg says, "Come to the kitchen table." And so Jeremy, well, why? Just come up here. So he gets to the kitchen table, and all of a sudden, Greg's like this. He's going to arm
wrestle.
the Maryland linebacker.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to say my son beat him.
Oh, really?
He did. Yeah.
Oh, my.
Jeremy's a tough kid.
Well, that was his father-in-law that he beat?
Yeah, well, that's
not family dynamics at its best, just so you know.
You've got the Armenians and the Irish, and somehow it's a great fit.
That's a potent combo. That's to be sure.
Oh yeah. You should see the grandson.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
His father-in-law reminds me of Dick Coon. Did you know Dick Coon at all? He was a philanthropist, a very well-to-do fellow, and he had a bowling alley that he had converted into his very own car salon.
Who are we talking about now? Who's father-in-law?
He was a businessman. He's not. I'm off the father-in-law. I'm saying he has sinewy tissue that reminds me of this Dick Coon, who was also a guy who had a salon and a lot of money and some cars, and was the nicest guy ever. And this little bowling alley was just kind of painted black and, hidden at the back of a lot and just looked like a nothing building. And you go inside, and oh my Lord. The collection of cars that he had in perfect 100-point condition. And he had, if this is pre-MTV, I'm talking about the early 80s here, had a video machine that would play clips along with the music.
Nice.
From the 60s. And I thought, wow, that's something.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Little did I know MTV would come out.
Well, Greg has these bicycles. I told you he had the Indian.
Indians.
You like the Indian?
Yeah, I like V-twin engines. I like Indians. I like early Harleys. I like panheads, shovelheads, all of that.
Well, he's got the bikes on the walls too.
Of course he does.
Bicycles with the what we banana seats and the sissy
crate.
bars.
The crate. Yeah.
Crate?
Yes,
What's
that's what it's called. Krate. The crate. They've got the big ape hanger bars, as they call them, so politically correct.
Yeah.
And the banana seat, the sissy bar. I've been called a sissy enough times. I know what a sissy bar is.
Us Irish, we didn't appreciate that.
Only an eighth Irish. Though.
Yeah, there were a couple things you don't call Irishmen, and you will get a fight.
I know. Look, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. But if it's money, I don't have any. But what I do have is a very particular set of skills. Because 1/8 of my blood is Irish. Go ahead, make my day.
Oh, he's scaring me now, Tori.
Tori, careful, you'll be taken.
So, Jay Leno.
Yes.
Tim
Are you
Allen.
talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got a few cars too, Have you ever seen Jay Leno's garage? Oh, I've got the best cars. You can't believe. I used to be a mechanic. Did you know that? Yeah, I was a wrench. For years, that's what I wanted. I did that for a living. And then I moved to New York. I slept in the alleys. I did stand up.
Then you knew Tim Allen too, didn't you, Jay?
Oh, yeah, Tim. You mean Buzz Lightyear?
Yeah.
I've known him since infinity and beyond.
I hope I'm not blowing the levels out.
I don't know.
Okay. Yes, Tim welcomed me on my first day with Ken Calvert on what station was it? WLLZ.
Oh, really?
Yes. Kenny said was his best friend and wrote a lot of Tim's stuff. And he said, Ed, there's a special guest on the phone. I was like, oh, that's nice.
Hey, Ed. Welcome to Detroit.
Nice.
Hi. Is this Tim Allen?
Yeah, I just want to say, you're working with one of the best in the country, man.
We saw him at the Fox Theater a few months ago.
Yeah. And I went there with Kenny to.
Did you?
Yeah, for the opening, the Santa Claus. Remember when the movie came out? Santa Claus.
Yeah, I do.
We were at the premiere of that.
Really?
And I was at Tim's 40th birthday party at his house in Beverly Hills.
Wow.
Yeah. What I can remember. Anyway, I know I showed up.
Yeah. I'm sure it was fun. What you remember?
Yeah, there was lions and tigers and everybody in town was there.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've got some great people out here. We've been chasing after Jeff Daniels.
Oh, I've worked with Jeff.
Have you?
Yes, he did Escanaba in the Moonlight.
We were at the world premiere at the Fox Theater for my daughter's, I think, 12th or 13th birthday. And we went to Greektown to Pegasus, and then we went over there and watched. And he got on stage. Were you there for the grand opening at the Fox?
Not for that. I actually went to Chelsea to see Escanaba.
Oh,
yeah, because Daba, was a friend of mine, was the lead, and Joey was the other guy. Maybe that was Duck Hunter meets Angel or whatever it was. I get them all. They all blend after a while.
No, Escanaba and the Moonlight. That was, a lot of Canadian type influence with the A.
It's funny you should say that because I just was watching a guy on YouTube who So you can't sleep, eh? We say a, and in the UP they say eh. Okay? So holy wow. I'm thinking he's out on the ice drilling a hole fishing. He's got fishing books that he's reading, 2 dogs, and it's basically ASMR without the label. ASMR is automated sensory meridian response. It's videos that are designed to make you go to sleep.
Oh.
And it isn't necessarily even speaking, it's somebody going, making noises on a mic, or speaking softly. And it's a huge subculture. And
it is?
It was, yes. And this guy was speaking Youper, just like, Jeff's play, which he had me do the television commercials for. He said, Ed, can you do the voiceover? I said, Jeff, yes.
Yeah.
And then he asked, and then we had lunch after the voiceover, and he looked really downcast. And this is in the 90s. And I said, Jeff, you all right? He said, I'm okay, but the phone just doesn't ring like it used to for a 40-year-old, 40-something leading man.
Really?
And then it occurred to me at that point, it doesn't matter whether you're a little guy like me who says, bell tire for a living, or if you're in Hollywood among the elite, you're always insecure about that next gig. Mm-hmm. And whether it's going to come along and whether you're going to be able to keep the lights on. So choosing a career in broadcast, performing, acting, dancing, whatever you want to do, in show business, always has that variable to it.
Well, they pay me about $260,000 a year to do these. Nobody knows it. I'm always scratching.
Yeah.
And Tori knows. I'm always like, yeah. I got calls into Lance Parrish. I got calls into Tim Dan. I sent a letter to Tim Allen. Ed Kelly, Sean Belizian. I mean, it is fun though. Especially when they say, like Mickey Redmond's coming on.
Mick's great. Thanks for sending me that video, by the way, of him singing. That was the highlight of my week. It was just so funny.
Could you re-sing that one?
No. And even if I could, I don't think I would because it's not PC. And that line is moved.
Wasn't that cool, though?
It was so cool.
Yeah,
and
he
he's
was
such
woodworking.
a nice man.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever met him, he's really nice.
No, I have. Like you and I, almost everybody, I think 90% or more of the people that we've had, I meet them like we did about 5 minutes ago. Yeah. We talk on the phone and... I get paid. I get paid to talk. I do. I have a manufacturer's rep for 3 companies.
No kidding.
Yeah, in Detroit. One next to WWJ.
Sure.
Cleveland, Philadelphia. Yeah. All American companies.
That's what I say when people ask what I do. I say, well, I sweat all day over a hot microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll bet you do sometimes, right?
Well, thank God because I went to General Motors Trim as a student when I went to college. And nepotism was king back then. And if you had any parent in the big 3, you were in. If your last name matched, you had a job during the summer. And I would do double shifts in plastics on a Sunday with over 100 degrees in there. And so on Sunday, you got double time. If you did a second shift, you got triple time. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the summer, I've got like $6,000 in the bank. And I'm going, what do I do with this? And then, they asked me if I wanted to stay. I said, no, I can't.
It's hard work.
It is hard work, but it wasn't that. It was that I wanted to be a radio announcer. Mm. That was I didn't know what I wanted to do for very long.
Where did you go to school for it, Ed? Did you?
I did not because there was no radio school unless you went to Fanshawe College, which was up in London, Ontario. They had a broadcast program. But
Specs Howard? Or
Specs Harvard, I call it, please. It's an Ivy League.
Whatever.
No, but money was not there to do that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And even if I had a car to get there.
Well, no, tell me, when you came across that bridge, Ed, did you not have a job? Did you have something lined up?
I did not come across that bridge. I had actually gone out to Winnipeg, Manitoba to do mornings with my former program director. That was after taking a job in Sarnia, getting blown out, going to London, Ontario, doing mornings for 2 years. And then they made me an offer I couldn't refuse to go out to Winnipeg, but they invited me in the summertime. What they didn't tell me was what hell the place was during the winter. And pardon me while I dwell on this just for a moment, because I'm so glad to be out. Every parking space has a 110 AC outlet, and you have to plug in a block heater and an oil heater and a battery warmer, or your car will not start. It'll go, no, I'm done. So not only that.
Are you serious?
I am as serious as a heart attack right now.
Wow.
Not only that, but lubricants. made by oil companies do not work at those temperatures. So I had to go out and I got to unplug the car. Remember to, because half the mornings being from the east, I didn't remember to unplug my car. We don't unplug our cars here unless they're electric, and there was no such thing back in 88, okay? So I unplugged the car. I try to get the key in the lock. It won't go. So I got to kind of bang it in with the heel of my other hand, turn it, and then fight with the door because the grease is not working on the hinges. And I go, as the door on my Honda Civic, which was all I could get right there.
Yeah.
And I sit down. The seats go underneath you. These vinyl seats crackle because at those temperatures, minus 60 Celsius.
Wow, that's
Because
cold.
for a morning show, you got to get up 4 a.m. Okay? So then, no. Okay. You plug me in last night. And it would start. Well, I back away. The grease in the steering wheel is not working. So power steering is now steering by manual. It's manual steering. So I'm fighting with the wheel to back up.
Wow.
And then the tires, Ron, have 4 flat spots because rubber does not flex at those temperatures. So I'm driving a Flintstone car for the first 2 miles to work, and work was only 2 miles, so they never did get flexible.
That's unbelievable.
That's called paying dues.
Well, we're probably close to that with these electric cars and the what's coming up here with the I don't know.
To answer the question, I did not come over the bridge. I flew to New York.
Okay. To where in New York?
Why am I having a brain? LaGuardia, thank you.
LaGuardia.
Yes, on July the 4th, believe it or not. On my first day illegally in America, I came in on an H-1, a special skills work permit.
How'd you end up in Detroit?
Well, I was a kind of a groupie of this syndicate that used to put out comedy because I was always interested in comedy. It was called the American Comedy Network, and they would put out demos free to radio stations, and I would see these cassettes come in, and Pete would say, "You want this? Is that the American Comedy Network?" Yes! And I would cull them together, and I was just a groupie. I was like a fanboy of this place. Mm-hmm. So out in Winnipeg, one of the producers says, "Ed, why don't you send a tape to American Comedy Network?" I said, "Why? Come on, that's big league. I can't do that." And this is what Raegan was in office at the time. I said, they needed a Raegan, apparently.
Raegan.
Yeah, their voice guy was going back to full-time radio.
And you can do Raegan?
Well, I did my best. Mr. Garbage Head, tear down this wall.
That sort of thing. And I did Popeye the Holy Man because the Pope was touring, I'm Popeye the Holy Man. I live in the Vatican. Eat spinach for dinner and bless all the sinners. I'm Popeye the Holy Man. And then we did an interview with the Pope's roadie. Oh, did you know he's a totally righteous dude? So what's your job for the Pope then, Lance? It's my job to Windex the booth and keep the hot stuff.
Well, for us Catholics, we haven't heard those.
Yes. No.
So tell us about the greatest radio man ever, J.P. McCarthy. Did you work with him?
I did not work with him. Briefly, I met him because I was the Windsor ambassador for the Wheels of Freedom Parade, which was an international event in the early 80s. And I rode in Eisenhower's Cadillac in the back, me and Cam Gardner, the late Cam Gardner, who was our midday guy. And I don't know how I got that. I think it was a thing where nobody wanted to do it. And I said, "I'll do it."
Yeah.
And they took us to the Fisher Building. And here's JP right in front of me, Joseph Priestley McCarthy, who I'd been listening to as a kid. I don't know why I was in AM radio as a kid, but I was. And my father would dictate what played on the big floor model radio. So I was very familiar with JP's stuff. And him just opening the paper and doing a JP McCarthy, and that's what he did. I got in big trouble for doing JP McCarthy, by the way.
Really?
Yes, I'll tell you that momentarily. But I did meet him and Bob Hines and all these big people I'd grown up watching on television just as an ambassador for this. And that's when we went to Dick Coon's club and saw all his fancy cars and, toys and his Lionel train collection and all of it. But I did I did JP. JP passed away. And of course, radio in the 90s was very, very zoo-like. So Kenny said, "Do you do JP?" I said, Well, I think I could manage a Joseph Priestley, and it was a little better then, and my voice wasn't Friday voice. And we did it, and he would talk to JP in heaven. It wasn't disrespectful. It was still very funny. But Joseph was looking down, having a conversation with Ken Calvert. Well, Frank Beckman went in the Free Press, and in his column called us jackals.
Ooh, Frank?
Frank lambasted us, But I have since talked to Jamie McCarthy, his son, I'm friends with. He says, you have my blessing as the only one who can do my dad because you're the only one who can actually do my dad well. There are those that try.
That's a great compliment because his voice, silky smooth.
Oh, yeah. JP was the master. In fact, we have JP in our opening of our show on the Mitch Albom Show.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. He's an unusual guy, this Mitch Albom, because he was talking about Mitch during his columnist when that's all he was. He's since done a hostile takeover of every medium outlet in the city.
He's done pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
So there were two favorite days with J.P. McCarthy. It was the opening Tiger Day, and it was St. Patty's Day, and he would be at Holy Trinity, Most Holy Trinity a lot of times.
With Hoot McInerney most times.
Yeah. I saw him at Reedy's Pub. We ran in. They pulled up in a limousine with Hoot and him and maybe Reedy, but they were all there, and some of the Michigan State, Duffy Doherty was inside at Reedy's. And
sure. All the bakes came out for opening day.
Yeah.
In fact, we used to do opening day down on Radio Row on Michigan and Trumbull, Kenny and I, and Ernie would stop by every year. And I would say, look who's coming down the street, kid. That looks to me like Ernie Harwell. And of course, Ernie would stop because he knew us. And we had him on the phone many times, I'd say, you're looking good, Ernie. And Ernie would say, well, you're looking good too, young man.
That's
and
funny.
on it would go, Ernie.
He wasn't he a sweetheart?
Oh,
George
he was
Peach or whatever.
He was an absolute darling of a man.
And Mitch wrote the play. And
I auditioned for that part, by the way.
You told me, and you told me, and is it okay to say Mitch Albom called you and he thought you were really the right guy, but you're too young, it sounded like. That's something you don't want out there, but it sounded like.
Well, there are times when you audition. I was invited to audition along with, like 25 other people. And it was at the Hockeytown Theater. And Mitch hands me a script, and, he just treats me like everybody else at this stuff, like no favorites at all. So he hands me this, and then I'm doing the Ernie lines. And in the middle of the script, I see High Flight. Do you know the poem High Flight?
I've heard of it.
At the end, at 2 a.m., back when terrestrial television went off the air, they would play this pilot. They would show a bird, a silver bird flying, and this pilot had written this poem, and it's in the copy. So I'm able to throw away this script as Ernie and say, "Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter-silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you had not dreamed of, wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I've chased the shouting winds along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air, up the long, delirious, burning blue. I've topped the wind-swept heights with easy grace where never lark or even eagle flew. And while with silent, lifting mind I trod the untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God. And that ball was caught by a young man from Warren, Michigan." No. And so
that's a wrap. We can't do better than that.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. Honest to God, that was beautiful.
I appreciate it.
That was really.
So Mitch called me and he said, "Ed, you had the best combination of broadcast and acting experience, but it's only a 250-seat theater, 300, whatever it is." He said, "In order to make you look Ernie's age, I'd have to bring in a full-time latex appliance guy to make you look older."
Yeah, because the guy was 85 or 80-something, right?
Yeah, he at the time he was. And you mentioned that your producer said I looked young. That was a curse at the time.
Yeah. Well, we saw the play at Hockeytown.
Yeah. Great play, terrific play.
We also saw it up north at Bay Harbor.
It toured the state.
Oh, did it?
It toured the entire state and sold out, I think, every time.
My youngest daughter, Laura, took me. And she called me and said, "Dad," she said, "I've got the day set up." She said, "I coach Connie Mack baseball."
Alan Trammell's on the mound.
Where were we?
Took you after Jim. Your daughter.
Where were we?
She called you.
No,
Escanaba. Ernie. Sorry. She took it serious.
You're the only person who has ever got me a little tongue-tied here. I don't know what to say, but I can't because I'm just going to keep talking. I'm going to talk.
But your daughter took you?
So, yeah, my daughter Laura from Holt, she came down and took me, and she's a sweet girl, and she said, Dad, I've got these tickets. She knows my love of baseball.
Sure.
So we go down to the Wren's Sen, and she says, she had it all planned. We go to Joe Muir's, sat outside, and then we went over to Hockey Town.
You could see Windsor from Joe Muir's then, yeah.
Yeah.
Right on the water.
You know what a great day that was.
Oh, I can imagine. You know.
And then my wife, we bought tickets up north at Bay Harbor, and that's not too shabby either.
No, that's okay. Yeah.
So we love sports. I mean,
it's a sports town.
It is. Brighton's a sports town too.
No doubt.
It really is.
Yeah.
But J.P. McCarthy, I wanted to just swing back there just for a minute because nobody can do this. And part of it is because the people aren't there, the stars. He could have Bob Hope on in the same week with President Raegan and John Wayne.
Well, how you doing, JP? I'm fine, John. How are you?
But he could do that.
Yeah.
He was a guy that could call and...
He had a rock and Rolodex like nobody else. It wasn't anybody he wasn't on a first name basis with in the big three, because he hung with those guys.
Yeah, he'd go, there was times I remember we listened in Ohio. We were down there 7 years, and it was only connection, really. I'd be driving 45,000 miles a year doing sales calls down there, Ed. And, I'd turn on WJR as I went to Canton, Ohio, or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you could catch it.
Because it's a flamethrower of 50,000 watts. It was only them and CKLW.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Now what? It's not quite that anymore, is it?
I think it is.
Really?
Yeah, I think
you can't get in Atlanta, Georgia like you could in the old days?
The pattern may have changed a little bit, but I think we're still 50,000 watts.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you know what the backup generator for the station is? It's a locomotive engine. I'm not lying. And we've got two of them.
Really?
One is at the broadcast house, which is an Art Deco masterpiece from the 30s. This station's been around a long, long time. And the other is on the roof of the Fisher building. And it's literally a locomotive engine. Picture a train in the front end of it. That's what powers up when the power goes down.
Really?
And as we saw when the grid went down on the East Coast early this morning, when everybody lost internet, anybody that had PC, planes were backed up for days. It's going to take that quagmire a week to clear up. But WJR, we're the public service station, and if there's ever an emergency, that's where you go, 760 AM on your dial, and we'll be there.
You get paid to do this.
I'm not. This is not a public service announcement. I'm saying that's. You better hope you have
Sounds like it to me.
An AM radio around somewhere. Even if it's one of the crank models.
I think someone was trying to get rid of AM radio, and I think they're in Washington D.C. As a matter of fact, maybe your boys.
No, the big three have talked about it, but Paul W. has been stepping in and trying to talk him out of it.
Oh, that's great. So Darren McCarty is one of my favorites. We golfed at Lakeland here a couple Fridays ago, and he's been sitting right where you're at, and he was a peach, man. I love Darren McCarty. He's a good guy. He looks you in the eye. He's Canadian.
I have a picture of him on my phone with me.
We're out golfing, and I got to be in the cart with him for 9 holes, and then we had lunch. I say got to because
it's a privilege.
It was a privilege.
Absolutely.
So what if he hits a 290 down the middle? Mine were only 280 down the middle.
I've had
it was
Stevie
embarrassing me.
I've had Stevie Y and a round robin thing, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But this guy, I mean, the only reason he did our show was because we were doing a veterans thing, and we were giving our lake house away for the veterans. It was at Crystal Gardens Grand River between Brighton and Howell.
Sure.
So his manager called and said, "Hey, we'd like to do this with you. We know you're involved, and so that was the biggest thing when he was here. I was
kid in a candy store.
Yeah. You know,
man, I was the same way. I remember when he toured with Cheech and Chong, man.
Oh yeah, but he kept getting into the stuff we can't even touch, that clinical grade stuff that he brought, man. D-Mac, he had some chiba, man. You know what I'm saying?
I do. So we have veterans, we have charities, we have foundations. I know Haiti with Mitch is a little closer. What else would be close to your heart that Ed?
I will tell you, I'm Protestant, but I support Catholic charities because I read in Forbes magazine that the administration costs are the lowest. And besides that, it's Say Detroit because, again, Mitch pays all of the costs. None of the expenses come out of the contributions from the public.
Well, God bless you.
And he's up to 8 or 9 charities.
I used to go to a lot of churches around here, St. Pat's, St. Mary Magdalene, and St. John's, and I found this place on Fawcett Road out near Parcelville Cider Mill, and I was a dirt road, and it's on a hill, and there's a cemetery all around it. The cemetery, the gravestones are like almost right to it, a big steeple.
Yeah.
And we go and sit in the back, and it's peaceful. It's the music, and it's. I'm not going there to make friends. We go in, we get the hell out of there.
I'm glad to hear that. Don't do the dirt nap on me. Come on. Ron, we just became friends.
We have communion and we go.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd be lying. You wanted me to go to confession, Ed?
Oh boy, no, not for me. Forget
You
me.
like that, didn't you?
And they keep casting me in film as priest. I don't know. Do I look priestly to you somehow? She's a little shaking her
Tori
head.
does not sure about that.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I'm not saying I act.
she's not sure where you've been. Okay.
and frankly, for about a decade, neither was I.
Yeah, I had 50 years. I stopped drinking May 28th of 2023.
Yeah.
For good. The Jack Daniels every other day was not good, and I try to say that I take 30 or 60 seconds every show to say, we're 13, 14 months into this, and it's the best thing. This would never have happened, Ed. Never, no,
believe you.
because you get buzzed one night, and you might have a gummy, or you might have this, or you might have whatever you happen to have that your neighbors bring down. You go to a bonfire. If the day ended in a Y, basically I was okay, but it was every other day. And what happens is that second day you're sick.
Yeah.
You get okay, you're good. The next day you're sick, and
Your synapses
you're not
don't
clear.
fire. Yeah, the same way. Yeah. And they've just proven that, and again, science shifts like sands. Butter used to be bad, now it's back on the good list, right?
Yeah, milk, whole milk.
But they have proven, the most recent research is that no amount of alcohol is good for you.
Yeah.
It just causes brain fog, and it's how much compromise you want to give. You can shorten your life by 2 years by 3 drinks a week.
Really?
And they say you can have 1 glass of wine, but it might be 2 weeks that you shave off your life. And I heard this on NPR, National Public Radio. I listen to quite a bit.
Well, we go 3 days a week, like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7 a.m. down here, Old 23 in Grand River, and there's just a group of guys. We chit-chat. You start with the Serenity Prayer. You end with the Our Father. I know, they say if you're making money, you shouldn't be talking about it. It's not
true.
something. But I'm not making any money, so I'm very happy to say
Talk about it.
You're just another guy around the table, Ed. And they're good guys.
That's good.
They're all liars and drunks.
No, had I been a politician, I would have made weed legal and alcohol illegal because I think alcohol has taken out more people than anything else.
Oh God!
And it ruined my father's life, because he came back from World War II, PTSD, and he just could not, silence the bombs. He was the blockbusters that went off in London and all the rest of it, and he just found solace in the bottom of a bottle, and
My grandpa Harry Madden, we went down the 4 brothers with my dad. It was my 9th birthday, and he had a couple of rental properties, and he had a fence around these 3 houses that he owned. And here's where he laid at January, like 2 days before, January 6th. I was 8 at the time, going to turn 9. He died like January 6th. But here's where he was in about 2 feet of snow. There's the spot he was. Okay, we go by there. Dad takes us in the house. we start looking. Oh, the first thing you say when you open up, there's the bed. He slept on that bed. Oh, shoot. Half of it's burned out. He dropped a cigarette, so
boy, yeah.
half the bed's gone. Hey, here's the refrigerator. Okay, we go. That's just burning my brain from 8 years old. Open the fridge, Dad says, check this out. There's some mustard here. There's a half a bottle of wine here.
Yeah.
Dad, oh, guys, all 4 of you, come on over here. We're going in the basement. He opens the basement door, and we got to clean this house out. Go downstairs and pick all those garbage bags he threw down the stairs.
Oh, my. How painful.
Harry Madden, and I loved him. He used to take me to the bars. They were dark, and they were cool in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
He'd take me in these Detroit bars, and we'd walk in, and this little towhead, he'd go, hey, here's Ronnie, here's Ronnie. Give him an orange pop, orange soda, make him a white bread with cheese and butter, and I'd sit there, and I loved it. I loved every minute with him.
Yeah.
And he was Harry Madden.
Mm-hmm.
And I took my 3 kids back to, I'll just finish this. I'm taking your time.
Sure.
We took my 3 kids to Ireland. They were in high school and college. Mm-hmm. So we take them back there, and we go to the farm, the Madden farm. My mom was a Madden. We go to the Madden farm up there in Northern Ireland, Port Stewart, Port Rush, where Rory McIlroy's from, and he was 10 years old, and they said, he's going to be the greatest golfer ever in the world. He was.
Wow.
But here's the thing. We get in there, we get on the farm, and Jimmy Madden is alive.
Really?
There were 10, 11 kids. He was the last. My grandfather was the oldest. And here it is, how many years later? Like 50 years later, whatever. He's 98 or 97.
No kidding.
Him and I were drinking, and the funniest part, they had the 2 best fiddle players in Ireland came to play for us on the farm, and they sing like birds. We
Oh,
can't
the
sing.
Irish in music. Don't get me started.
Last thing. So what happens is I'm sitting there with Uncle Jimmy, and I said, man, you look like my grandpa. You look just like him. Those blue eyes.
Doesn't that creep you out a little bit?
Yeah, oh, yeah, it was great. And he says, Ronnie, could you go in the farmhouse into the kitchen there, and could you get us a glass of vodka?
Ronnie, could you go get us a glass of vodka?
There. And he says that. I walk in, and nobody's paying attention. There's like 8 people in there. I said, hey. And they go, yeah, Ron, what? I go, Uncle Jimmy would like us to have a glass of vodka. They start cracking up. This 96-year-old dude, and they're going, don't you know, he wants Jameson. He was busting my balls at 93, 95, whatever he was.
Vodka? What are you talking about, lad? What are you, stupid? He wants Jameson. What's wrong with you, buddy?
That was the way it was, you know. But it was fun.
I once proposed to a girl named Siobhan Ireland, who was from just outside of Belfast. And her brothers were Tommy and Dominic and her da.
Her dad?
Her da. Yeah, that's what they called their dad.
Did you marry her?
No, she got homesick and wanted to go back to Ireland. And Winnipeg was no place to propose.
Yeah, too cold, right? I mean,
It was a big mistake.
well, I was wondering, I was going to get into this thing. We had my grandpa came in from California. He was a master plumber. And so he comes in, and he brings in these Mickey Mouse ears. We're like young kids, like 8,
Big
9
deal.
years old. Oh, it was a big deal. My dad.
Disneyland.
It was a big deal for him.
Yeah.
And he was a big drinker, doink, 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 obviously.
Irish,
They're both,
really?
No, this was the other one. This was the Jess, the Madden. Both these guys had this issue.
Madden is so bad.
So he says, my dad says, all the kids wear those Mickey Mouse ears all week. And we get this thing from him, and he says, wear these. And so I got the idea at 9, 10. I said, okay, I'm going to go. We had the Jabreskis, Kozovacs, Roberts. And so Jabreskis had this black Labrador, Blackie.
Black Lab.
So I went over. We always wrestled. I took those over, and I jammed them in his mouth.
Oh, boy.
I jammed those in his mouth, took the ears back out, and put them on. and went home and said, "Hey, Dad, Blackie ate he ate my Mickey Mouse ears.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to wear them now."
Aren't you a slippery little guy?
What do you get? Would you wear those around? I mean,
No,
I
not my
mean,
thing. You
no.
know, I think I may have for my niece when we took her down to Disney World in Florida, but you know, and that pancake breakfast they have where everything's shaped like the characters, and then they have the mascots running around. I mean, I was a grown up, and I was tearing up at the reaction of my niece, watching all of this going on.
Yeah.
And it really was magical. The night show with the fireworks and the ball in the center and everything.
That's
I mean, I
cool.
would never pay those prices. but
Yeah.
I'm a Scot,
Well, yeah. Scots are a little different, aren't
Right?
they? Yeah. I got some brothers, and I think they got a little more in that than they should have.
Do you know how copper wire was invented?
What?
Do you know how copper wire was invented?
No.
That was two Scots fighting over a penny. Right, here, grab the vice grips. I'll grab this side.
That's how it happened. Makes sense.
We're not really all that tight-fisted. Some of us.
Well, once you moved on and moved out, or what you do, I guess, a little more serious. How would you like to be remembered, Ed?
Remember, as having been compassionate and thoughtful of others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not big on myself.
Well, I've enjoyed having you here visiting, and I appreciate you coming on, and you're a good guy, and
I appreciate that.
yeah.
So are you. I can tell.
Well, we do our best.
Do our duty to God, Queen, and country. Oh, you're not from my country. Never mind.
No, I'm kind of, we've got Canadian people. Well, actually, most of our people are from the Iron Mountain.
Iron Mountain.
The Iron Mountain. We were close.
Wow.
Yeah, and really, a lot of the uncles worked up there, and they had, I remember one of them lost a leg up there.
Oh, boy.
And came and visited.
Mining, huh?
Yeah.
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 That'll do it.
Well, thanks, Ed.
You're so welcome, Ron.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're going to eat. We're going to have
We're
one.
going to keep Jess behind. Come on, her. Give us a
Oh,
look
there
at
we
that.
go. Nothing
Irish.
to it.
The Irish.
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. Let's get in there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. These are a year old.
A year old, huh? These are
Yeah,
quite
you
young.
can just eat that whole thing. You got to rate it 1 to 10, Ed.
That's a 9 3/4.
9 3/4. Oh, that's good.
That's how a pickle should taste. Not mushy.
They're a year old.
I'm going to get fresh pickles from now on whenever I can.
Yeah. You notice how clear they are?
Yeah?
That's that garlic dill and a little salt in there. And
That is so good. And I cut pickles into everything.
do you?
Chicken salad, tuna salad. That's what I do.
Wow. I hope you enjoy them. Those are yours.
Those are mine?
Thanks again, Ed.
Oh, wow.
Enjoy.